Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, do I have a fucking heater for you, alright? February 5th? Today's February 5th, but I'm going to be telling you a story that I wrote based on completely true events. This is called September 1st, 2024. I don't know how long this video is going to be. I have like 30 pages of it written down in a composition notebook. So just relax, tune in. I swear to God, dude, this story does not sound believable, but I guarantee you everything that I wrote happened, okay? And it only gets crazier. Furthermore, in a video I made a little bit ago talking about drunk stories, I mentioned like a cabin. All right, this happens at that same cabin. So I'm just going to start reading and I'll jump in with additional information if necessary. So, hello, I'm writing this on the 2nd, but this entry will be focused on the events of the 1st of the month. So get ready. I awoke like any other Sunday, hungover and out of it. It was about 10:30 a.m. and I had much to do. My shoddy and I started cleaning up. I'm going to change the names, by the way. We were in Kyle's apartment, as we always are. My buddy Sal texted and I told him I was getting dropped off at my dad's place shortly because it was getting close to the time he had planned to pick me up. Shoddy and I get done making the place look pretty. I grab my backpack and a 12-pack of Simply Spiked lemonade that I had Kyle buy for me, and we were out of the door. On the way to the car, I started singing Our Song by Tay Tay. Shoddy was fucking with it, and she knew a lot more of the lyrics than I did. She drops me off and we say goodbye. I do the click/pop thing with my mouth as she drives off. I go inside, straight to the basement, to find a box to store the alcohol in. I'm only 19 after all. I find a suitable pick, place the good stuff inside, and then tape it up. Nobody sees anything, and nobody asks questions. That was the first page for reference. As I get ready, my father and my stepmom ask if I want to take a fresh, uneaten cake up with me. They had bought it for Dad's drunk friends last night, but no one indulged. I knew the same thing would happen if I brought it, so I didn't. Sal arrived shortly after. I said goodbye and went outside to meet them. As I approached the car, Sal pulled a funny and slammed the gas on reverse as if he was pulling away and driving off. He only made it about 2 feet back, as bro was just fucking with me. We say hi, and I open his trunk to put the alcohol in. It's pretty full, but I managed to cram it in. Sal tells me to open the orange water cooler laying on the side of his trunk. I didn't care to that much, but curiosity gets the better of me, so I pop the top open. Contained within is some red Solo cups, half a bottle of Pink Whitney, and a copy of Night at the Museum on Blu-ray DVD. Nice. Okay, I've got another character. I got to give him a fake name. We'll call him Jose. Jose occupies shotgun, so I take back seat. Spiderwebs are everywhere in the car. I like looking at one behind the driver's seat, headrest. It sprawled from the seat to the ceiling. It was cool. We hit the road. Only a short hour and a half drive until the cabin was reached. Honestly, it's a miracle we made it there and back without any complications. Sal had his phone out practically the whole time. He kept switching from Spotify to change the music we were bumping to navigation, all while talking to Jose, and to me about whatever. He had trouble staying in his lane and would occasionally swerve back to ensure we didn't go flying off the highway or smashing into neighboring vehicles. The slight stress I had about surviving the next hour was combined with the tunes playing. Jose and Sal enjoyed music by Lil TJ, J. Cole, and various other rap artists I never cared to listen to. A lot of it was pretty okay, but I couldn't see what made the song special. Once in a while, Sal would play some classic Juice WRLD songs, which are always a vibe. He played Bottle twice, though. Sin. On the Saturday functions, you'd be lucky to even hear Bottle once. But by God, when it does play, that shit is like Christmas morning. And I got parentheses BPM, which is an inside joke. Lil Uzi is blasting full volume when we pull up to the cabin. We get out and stretch our legs. I figure no better way to chill than climbing on the roof of the storage shed and looking out on the water. You see, Sal's cabin is shaped like an A. It has a triangle roof with an additional storage shed built directly into the side. Because the cabin roof ends really close to the ground, you can get a running start, sort of run up the side of the cabin, and then use your hands to secure yourself onto the shed roof, which is much less steeper. Jose joins me, and we're chilling. From the ground, Sal pulls out a cart and tells me I can hit it whenever. This was the most ghetto cart ever. You could hit it from either end and it looked all beaten up, like bro found it at the bottom of the lake. He tried chiefing that shit, but came to the conclusion that it was dead. Dude, okay, pause. Dude, I think I might flash a picture of this on screen. This was the most fucking garbage looking cart ever. Like, no disrespect, dude. Oh my god. I had to take a picture of it. It was so bad. Well, I told him that he could always just hit my cart instead. Big mistake. He looks at me, curiosity piqued. "You brought a cart?" he asked. Sal opens the backseat car door, takes out my bag, and starts digging for it. He finds it, takes a hit, and then throws it to me as I'm 10 feet up in the air. Luckily, it was a really good throw and I caught it no problem. But Jesus, man, what a way to handle somebody else's property. I did not let him have it for the rest of the trip. He was content hitting that Gorilla Glue cart, in parentheses, or quotations, anyways. Unpacking was simple. Prior to arriving, we stopped at the local grocery store for a few items. Soda, some more stuff, and a 3 for $10 pizza sale. As we were putting our pizzas in the basket, some old head approached us and said he remembered the days when it was a 5 for $10 and not a 3 for $10 pizza deal. Apparently it wasn't too long ago either, but the economy has gotten so bad and blah blah blah. We purchased our items and left. Next door over is King Cone, a legendary ice cream place. But Sam broke the news to us that this location was permanently closed. No! It's a miracle that nothing bad happened to the innocent folks at the grocery store. I was so mad. Okay, guys, this was a joke. All right, calm down. Anyways, back to the cabin. Our first activity was hitting the lake. Sal opened up the box of spiked lemonade and handed me one. He cracked his open. It was only 1 p.m., but fuck it, looks like we're day drinking now. The boys changed into their swimsuits. I had forgot to bring mine, so I opted to take a kayak out. Before leaving, the three of us sat on the dock and reminisced about the summer. 'Twas a good one indeed. We exchanged our top 5 moments with each other. I ranked mine was Sal's birthday party, the 4th of July parade, Kid Leroy concert, Shadi and I's 1-year anniversary, and of course, the Saturday functions. These are in no particular order. By this point, my first lemonade was down the hatch, so I took another one out to the water. Swimming time! Jose took a paddleboard out, and Sal took out the classic blow-up tube. The water was nice, and the view was nicer. I chased some geese with the kayaks, and the boys and I were having a conversation about whatever, which eventually the topic changed to Carlos, as it frequently does. So this is another friend that I have. Well, not really anymore. Apparently, there was an update with the guy. So let me break it down. Kyle, Sal, and myself had a really deep and real talk about Carlos's behavior in Mexico about a month ago. We pressed him at first, then we all offered him the best advice we had. Well, apparently afterwards, he messaged Sal and said that the Mexico trip ruined his life and that we were way too hard on him. I guess you can lead a Carlos to water, but you can't make him drink. Ever since Sal got that message, he's been distancing himself from Carlos because it's obvious he hasn't learned a thing. But oh well, only so much we could have done. I try to be nice to the guy, but we aren't really friends. Anyhow, at this point, I'm feeling pretty buzzed. Okay, I'm going to pause it there. So, I'm not going to elaborate on this Carlos situation, but he took a vacation to Mexico with some of the other boys, and he did some fuck shit. So we don't really talk to him anymore. That's kind of all you needed to know. I hadn't eaten since yesterday, though. Off near the other side of the lake are 2 boats. Sal proposes we, quote, go make some friends. The next 15 minutes or so are permanently dedicated to Sal slowly making his way to the boats. But time is moving faster now for some reason. We get to the more populated boat first. They say hi. There's maybe half a dozen young adults, early 20s, but some of the men could have been older. Three or four kids were present too. Sal starts talking to him, and of course the first thing he mentions is how he's drunk. Naturally, these folks then offer Sal a beer bong, which he jumps at. Sal abandons his tube and swims over to the boat. They pour him a Coors Light and hand Sal the funnel. Sal begins downing it while still treading water. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. Sal does his routine, And these guys point us in the direction of another pontoon, which consists of two teenagers, Carter and Sawyer. Carter and Sawyer, we learn are their names. One was probably around 10 years old, the other around maybe 14 or so. The kids have a pretty cool setup. The base of the boat is flat, nothing fancy. But smack dab in the middle is a jungle gym of metal rods, forming a big cube of activities. What lack of chairs or tables this boat didn't have was well made up for by this homemade contraption. A ladder was attached to the side, dipping into the water slightly but stretching up maybe 10 feet. Stopping at a platform at the very top of this thing. A diving board stuck off, hanging isolated above the water. One of those clippable basketball hoops dangled to the side opposite of the ladder, and two swings hung from the diving board up above. Diving platform up above, sorry. The kids had a speaker as well, and were playing modern rap songs. Artists like J. Cole, and I don't fucking know. At one point, PTSD by Juice came on, which was surprising. They by no means had a bad playlist. I'm pretty sure Sal knew every song they played. Anyways, we approach. Sal wishes Carter a happy birthday, as the adults had told us it was. Sal started shooting the shit, as you already guessed. The kids are nice, but don't really help continuing Sal's one-sided conversation. Jose and I simply watch this play out, occasionally adding meaningless quips or jokes for the hell of it. True. Sal continues his blabbering, eventually convincing the two to let him climb up and jump off the diving board. Again, nice kids. Sal climbs up and jumps off twice, the second time around requesting that one of the kids records him jumping off and then sending him the video to Sal through Snapchat. Fuck, I could have worded that simply. They comply. Sal left his phone back at the cabin, so later on Sal would have to accept the friend request to secure the video. Spoiler alert, Sal never got that video, and the kids never appeared on the Snapchat added list. They probably unadded Sal as soon as we left them, is what most likely happened. Oh well, Sal's back was probably starting to hurt anyways from carrying the conversation, if you could even call it a conversation. So we say goodbye, the kids speed home, and we start heading back ourselves. However, on our way back, the first boat of adults speeds out to the middle of the lake again. So we say hi again. This time they're blasting You Belong With Me by the one and only Tay-Tay on this big-ass speaker. They turn it down so they can hear Sal glazing about how he loves Tay-Tay and owns 1989 and Red on vinyl. Not even Taylor's version, by the way, I've confirmed this. One of the girls turns it back up and asks him to sing it. The bridge part of the song was playing. Now, it was quickly realized that Sal's ass didn't know this part of this pretty popular song. However, my ass knew it. So fuck it, I start singing that shit for the world to hear. The girl points at me and nods in approval. Slay. I have proved myself as an ally. Sal again tries to take over the spotlight. He talks about his favorite genres of music with the adults, his occupation as a real estate insurance agent, which is sort of a half-truth, and Donald Trump is brought up at one point. Anyways, during this clusterfuck of conversational topics, one of the guys, his name is either like Eric or Richard or some generic shit like that, mentions how the girl singing Tay-Tay earlier was single. Now, this girl was easily in her early 20s and might have been siblings with this guy, because earlier on it was established that she was related to one of the guys on the boat. Her name was Emma or Emily or something, but regardless, this Eric fellow starts giving us the spill. You know, she's ready to mingle and apparently prefers a dad bod too. Things got pretty fucking wild real quick. He then tells her to stand up and, quote, give us a spin. She thankfully did no such thing and looked visibly uncomfortable. Keep in mind they were potentially related. If he meant it as a joke, nobody laughed. Now, in the moment, assessing this situation was pretty straightforward in my drunken mind. I shook my head and announced simply, that is crazy. Then I said it again. I said, that is crazy. Even Sal was taken off guard a little bit and was clearly not trying to engage further on this subject. My only regret was not saying more. We moved on rather quickly. Sal found a way to pivot off into a new subject, which I was thankful for. Although, take my perspective with a grain of salt, and it is commonly known that I am extremely sexist. At least T-Money would agree with that. So pause here. So that last line was in regard to an event that happened in like July of 2023. I was referring to my sister. One night she held a party at her house, and apparently I was saying like quote sexist things, and she got really mad and stormed off in her room and told us to leave and like cried herself to sleep basically. And her boyfriend had to spend the rest of the night like being kind, like talking to us about. I mean, I wasn't alone, but talking to all of us about my extremely sexist behavior. And so like it was resolved like the next day. But from that point onwards, my sister kept bringing it up as like a gotcha moment, sort of, because she didn't really have anything else on me, even though she said it wasn't a big deal. So it is what it is. I just made that in reference to that because I thought it was funny. I mean, all of it nowadays, this is like old news. So, and yeah, so we also have siblings potentially. Like that shit was fucked. What the Eric guy did on the boat, dude. Like Jesus Christ. Like that's potentially your sister, and even if it's not, you're so fucking weird, dude. Like stop. You know, I'm an ally, is what I'm trying to say. Let's see here. Anyway, some folks on the boat then offered us pudding shots. No idea where they came from, but soon hands came reaching down on us, brandishing said pudding. It was in a little plastic cup that came with a plastic knife to eat it with. No cap, it was pretty damn good. It had a mint chocolate chip flavor to it, probably because that was the flavor. W folks. Funny thing about the pudding shots was Jose took one. And you see, he took out his hearing aids prior to swimming, so that they wouldn't get wet and damaged. So he must have not heard or known what was going on with the pudding. We both agree that it didn't taste like alcohol, yet later on in the day, Sal was really trying to prove to Jose that he did in fact consume alcohol, which is something that Jose doesn't really do. Sal seemed to care a lot more about this than Jose ever did, even though the guy hasn't had a drop of alcohol prior to the pudding. It was so little, even if it did have alcohol, Jose was fine. Maybe we should have asked before taking it. Anyways, the time has come for us to disperse. I thanked them one last time for the pudding, and we head out. Sal told us to go ahead and that he would catch up. At this point, my bladder was about to burst, as those lemonades had been filtered out. I speedrun back to the cabin, and the piss that follows is heavenly. I head back outside, and Sal is still way out there, slowly kicking his feet back to shore. I figured I should have enough time to go explore the woods for a bit. I grabbed a crowbar from the shed and walked down the driveway, crossed the street, and entered the woods. Nothing too eventful came from this expedition. Pretty early on, I found a dead tree still standing, and with a couple of swings from the crowbar, it was ready to fall. I sent Kyle a snap of me pushing it down. I decided that was all I had time for, so I went back. Sal was much closer to the shore now, and landed shortly thereafter. Looks like it was pizza time, we all agreed. We took out a pepperoni, turned the oven knob to 425 degrees, and waited in anticipation for the preheating to be complete. Soon it was time. I burnt the fuck on my arm when putting the pizza in, but I was locked in and managed not to flinch. The oven was really, really hot. I set a timer and went back to the dining room. Jose and Sal couldn't put their collective 3 brain cells together to figure out how to get the CD player working, so they asked me for my help. Turns out, I told them, the CD player needs to be plugged into the wall for it to work. I pop in night at the museum and we start watching it. At this point, about 7 minutes had passed since the pizza was put in. Curiosity got the better of me and I went to go check it out. The pizza was burnt to shit, as it turns out. Before I had confusion set in, I took the pizza out and inspected it. The edges were black, and the cheese and pepperoni took on a much darker shade. Perhaps it was edible, but it was going to be a rough meal. A loud beep began to fill the cabin, and the 3 of us, now quite panicked, rushed to open windows and shut off the fire alarms. At least now we know they work in case of an emergency. Once the situation was assessed, we started on cutting the pizza. We had decided to eat it because there really wasn't an option to skip a meal. With some difficulty, we cut the pizza into 7 brutally uneven slices, and we stepped outside to crunch on our food. It was barely edible. Not much was said either. We just kind of just sat there in silence. Except for at one point where Sal insisted again that Jose consumed alcohol with that pudding shot. He even looked it up, and sure enough, all the recipes available were alcoholic, proving that Jose was wrong and that Sal was right. Jose gave me a side eye. Bruh. Anyways, after our meal, in quotations, we struck up the idea to go back into the woods. So I grabbed the crowbar and we were off. Jose took a baseball bat as well. We were ready to fuck up some dead trees. It was quite a blast. We found 2 trees within close proximity that were ready to fall. Sal and Jose took turns with the bat on their tree, while I soloed mine with the crowbar. I was making much more progress than them, since a baseball bat was a blunt object. Those two were playing a type of game where one would claim that the tree was saying some really offensive things to the other person. And so the other person whom wielded the bat would pretend to become very angry, and as such they would take it all out on the tree with unprecedented wrath. Soon enough they asked me to join. The tree says yo chain is fake as fuck, Sal says. I start beating the fuck out of this goddamn tree. My crowbar becomes my beacon of justice. The crowbar is significantly more effective. Soon enough, and it will be ready to fall. Sal steps aside to piss while I keep swinging. He's a good distance away, so I'm not too worried about anything. I keep smacking it, and the tree gets to a point where maybe one good shove could tip it over. An earth-shattering crack fills the woods. A snap more powerful than anything doing the sponge. Okay, pause. So the sponge is kind of an inside joke. It's from that one episode of SpongeBob, but there's compilations on YouTube where you can like see people doing the sponge, quote unquote, and it's just like people breaking bones. So the tree begins its descent, and there is Sal, standing with his back turned, pissing his heart out. But now he doesn't seem so far away. Against all odds, Sal was seconds away from another trip to the hospital. Jose and I call out. Sal glances behind him. His life flashes before his eyes. Thankfully, bro locked in and managed to get the fuck out of there in time. But damn. Silence fell over us. What the fuck? Silence fell over us for a sec. I almost killed homeboy. My handwriting isn't the best. So, yeah, the tree almost fell on bro. He seemed pretty scared. God fucking damn it, dude. I can't read my own handwriting. He seemed pretty scared for a minute. Like he had a PTSD attack and went back. But he was fine. A couple jokes were made, but it was all good in the hood. I resumed chopping my original tree when Sal made a shocking discovery. Looking up the tree, it was quickly realized that it was home to a nest of bees. Or hornets, most likely, actually. We immediately hightailed it out of there. It was a miracle that I didn't get swarmed as I was going down on that tree earlier. Sus? I got parentheses. Sus? We had had enough of the forest for one day anyhow. At this point, 7 p.m. was approaching, and Sal had made it clear that he had to be in town by then, so he could draft for his fantasy football team or whatever. Town has data, so that's why. Jose was going to drive us because Sal had been drinking all day. I was okay with this, though. We were safer with Jose driving, even if Sal had been sober. That's so mean, dude. Town is like 10 minutes away, and we arrived before we know it. Town is small. There's a few businesses crammed together at an intersection. Houses are found everywhere farther down the streets, and miscellaneous buildings like a library and a funeral home are scattered throughout. There's a large baseball field nearby, so we walk over so Sal and Jose, can smack wiffle balls with a plastic bat to pass time or something. I'm not really doing anything in this field besides watching those two go crazy with the wiffle balls, so I go off to explore for a bit. Nothing notable happens. It's still not fantasy football time yet, and when I reunite with gang, Sal seems to be over playing wiffle ball. We end up heading into town, leaving Jose by his lonesome in the field. I knew walking with Sal would lead to something crazy, and I was right because he led me right into a bar. There was a large sign out in the front door which read, "We ID." Sal was going to try his luck regardless. We walk in. It's filled to the brim with people. We sit down at some gambling machines to assess the situation. I really was not rocking with this environment, but I wasn't doing anything illegal. The plan was Sal would attempt to order 2 rum and cokes. If denied, we would leave. Simple. He stepped into the bathroom before this happened, and a few moments later, stepped out while talking on his phone. He must have gotten a call. He signals for me to follow him, and we walk out the bar and down the street, and I find out he's talking to his aunt. I think she's having trouble registering on email for something from what it sounds like. He suggests to create a new email. He also mentions how he's pretty drunk and high. I guess his aunt was cool with it, though. We head back to the field, and Sal hangs up. Jose is still going crazy with the wiffle balls. Somehow he managed to hit one of the balls hard enough with his thin plastic bat to cause it to go over the fence and onto the other side of the field. To go over the fence on the other side of the field and into the river that borders it. This wasn't the first time Jose managed to do this either, but it would certainly turn out to be his last. Really thick brush prevented most potential pathways down to the riverside, though once in a while there would be a little spot in which you could access a steep and rocky path. Jose started looking more up the river where the ball originally landed, while Sal and I went further down. Navigating through this mini jungle was difficult, but I am a nimble explorer. Sure enough, I find the ball. It's in the water, pushed up against a rock, the current trying in vain to carry it further down. We call to Jose, and he speed runs. He speed runs down to us, faster than a white mom making it to Starbucks before they close in 2 minutes. Jose immediately starts stepping on loose rocks over the water in an unreasonably frantic attempt to retrieve his ball. He's reaching down to pick it up when disaster strikes. He slips, and one foot is plunged all the way into the water. Instead of trying to recover on shore, he sort of panics, it seems, and he sort of half jumps deeper into the river, balancing himself with his second foot. Both of his shoes and socks are now soaked. It was unfortunate to see it happen, but also wildly entertaining. We begin making our way back up, and I find an old baseball chilling there that I take out of the brush. I show it off to the boys. Sal takes it and sees if he could throw it far enough to hit the field fence on the other side. He did not hit it. I look down and see an old fish hook is hooked onto my shoelace, so I carefully begin extracting it. At the same time, 3 teenage boys, no older than maybe 14 years old, begin making their way towards us on bikes. Obviously, they intended to pass us and head farther down the river, but I couldn't help but hold up this fish hook and offering it to them. This fishing hook, sorry. Hey, it was up for grabs. Maybe you could catch a fish or a critter with it. That's what I told them. They took glances at me, but none of them said a single word. They silently rode by. Actual NPC behavior, man. Like, maybe I scared them, but come on. They are not real. However, those kids were biking farther down the river, and all the times I visited this cabin throughout my life, I never had thought about exploring further down. Once Sal started his football drafts and Jose was doing whatever, that's what I sought to do. A fair amount of time had passed when I actually set out and started walking down the river. A nice path of grass was there to guide me further. To my right, fences marking people's backyards began to appear. In fact, I actually spotted a deer in the first backyard to see. It was staring right at me. I stared right back, and the deer stayed unnervingly still. Turns out it was a plastic decoration and not a real deer. But from a distance, it was hard to tell. But I got bamboozled. I was tonight's biggest loser. I carried on. There was some small hills here and there, but nothing really changed much. I could notice thin tire treads lightly streaking the grass. Those kids from earlier biked through here. Soon enough, the path opens up more into a field. There's a road maybe 100 yards down, and a gravel path stems from that road all the way down to where I'm approaching, splitting off and leading into a white house on the side. There also seems to be a monument. I get closer, and it's dedicated to the military. There are pillars and slabs which rise up, each giving explanation of each branch of the military and what they're all about. It's impressive in its architecture and design, but I became bored rather quickly. I cross the street and continue following the river. However, it is here where the journey ends. Up ahead, a solid bridge prevents me from moving forward. It stretches all the way down the street. Thick forest borders everything, though I do spot something very interesting. At the very edge where the riverside becomes all forest are 3 bikes parked and unattended. I know immediately that these belong to those kids from earlier. I walk closer to investigate. The bikes are parked right outside a trail leading into the thick forest. I'm scared to go in and risk running into those kids. I don't know who or what I'm up against. Off to the side, I find a littered beer can. It still has some liquid in it. I place it upwards in front of the bikes as a warning that I was there. Then I left and went back to Sal and Jose. Sal is really into his fantasy football thing, and he is conversing with Jose about all these players. It sounded like they were speaking a foreign language. I start to pass time. Jose and I end up pitching wiffle balls to each other for the hell of it. It's sort of fun, but goddamn, it's so hard to hit the balls. The activity becomes boring rather quickly, and I really want to head back to the trail. The sun will be setting soon, so I'd like to check it out before it gets dark. So I embark once more. Thankfully, the kids are gone. I waste no time walking into the trail. It's a very thick forest for how small it is. The river cuts off the path from the end, and a bridge on the right, positioned much higher, leaves this little plateau isolated. However, it was possible to go further. A steep cliff of little rocks, like the ones on train tracks, cut into the path at the very end. Climbing this little cliff granted you access to the top of the train tracks, allowing you to see the land around you from several stories up. I wasn't worried about a train coming, though. I'd never had seen one pass by in all my years here. On the other side of the bridge from where I came up was another cliff. This dropped down to the base of the river. I decided to check it out. Naturally, it was steep and all the rocks made the ground loose and scary, but I made it. It was a very peaceful scene. Unfortunately, there wasn't much room to go anywhere besides back up, but still it was nice. The flow of the river was gentle, and it was cool seeing the arc of the bridge leaving tons of space for the river to continue. I admired everything for a minute, then made my way back. Going down the pile of rocks was way harder than going up. I slip almost immediately and smack my hand against a massive rock. I thought I fucked up my bracelet upon hearing the impact, but it was fine. I walk out of the trail and start heading back eventually. Everything is noticeably darker. The sun is setting real soon. Up ahead, I see Sal and Jose approaching. It appears they followed my tracks. I show them the trail and they want to check it out before we leave. So back in we go. At this point, Jose has taken his shoes off. I guess wearing them is understandably pretty uncomfortable. But he still decides to climb up the rocks barefooted, which is kind of insane. We reach the top. Somehow Jose is with us. The view is still okay. We can't really catch the sunset though because trees are everywhere around us, even though we're pretty high up. We lean against the railing and look down at the river below. It's chill. All right, Jose says, and he gets his shoes ready. Suddenly, one by one, he banishes his shoes into the river below. One disappears into the depths. The other gets caught in a network of branches sticking into the water. After Sal and I recover from shock, as we cannot comprehend why Jose would do such a thing, we start grabbing rocks and start throwing them in the river, trying to hit Jose's shoe. It's much more difficult than it seems, but we managed to strike it a couple of times. It was pretty fun. Darkness rapidly approaches, so we decide it's time to go back. Jose was on the struggle bus trying to get back down. He did the iconic crab method to help safely retreat to the soft ground. We walk back. The car windows were rolled down the whole time we were gone, but nothing bad came out of it. It's a miracle that Jose didn't get tetanus or something because the bro was exposing those grippers to the elements. The ride home was peaceful, probably because Sal wasn't driving. Jose was raw dogging those pedals. The country has many, many more open fields than town, so the golden sunset was much more visible, and the sky was painted with a crimson orange, which transitioned into a sturdy violet towards the horizon. A wave of tranquility washes over me. This life is precious. Soon night will fall, and even sooner we find ourselves safely pulling up to the cabin. Now every alcoholic knows that once the sun sets, we rise to drink. So that's exactly what happens, dude. Sal busts out that pink Whitney and starts mixing some mid-ass drinks. He pours some root beer and Whitney into a cup with some ice and stirs it with his finger. Unwashed, definitely. He passes the brew to me and I hesitantly sip. Damn, this shit is fire, I exclaim, while simultaneously resisting the urge to gag. It had potential, but it was just a little bit too strong, and Pink Whitney tastes awful. Dude, never drink Pink Whitney. Never drink Pink Whitney. Holy shit. I pour up myself, mixing some old-fashioned Mountain Dew into my death potion. You know, for as much bitching as I'm doing, this Whitney is gonna get the job done. Sal and I finished the rest of the bottle within the hour, and that warm, fuzzy feeling of intoxication kicks in. This is what I live for. Soon after, it's time to visit the cemetery, as tradition. Night has officially fallen, so we suit up and head out the front door. Though before heading out, I realize that we gotta bring some special tools, just in case. I lead the boys to the back, asking them if they think we should bring the baseball bat or crowbar. This is where I fucked up. As we walk outside to where our tools are, Wait, did I write this again? I asked the group if we even need to bring a crowbar and the baseball bat. Though apparently I asked too loudly. Weird, I wrote that weird. The boys rushed me inside very paranoid though, cursing me out. Apparently the next door neighbors were out having a fire and clearly heard me mention how we should bring a crowbar and a bat with us. I guess that's enough to stress over. Now, I swear I did not see these people at all. But it was 2 against 1, so fair game. Whatever. After some time, they calmed down, but they were still mad at me. They didn't want to go to the church now because of how sus the whole thing looked. Low-key, I thought it wasn't that big of a deal, but whatever, man. The next thing that would happen would be the final and biggest event of the night so far. After we collect our bearings and resolve to go back to the church, we are interrupted by some commotion going down a few houses away. It was only yelling, but the problem rested with the person that this concerned. It was neighbor Bob, who seemed to be yelling at his wife. Now, I've heard stories of neighbor Bob since childhood. Everybody who knew Sal knew who Bob was. In short, Bob is a terrible person. He's not friendly as is. He's extremely strict about his property and who is on it at any given time. He owns a few guns on top of that and is pretty serious about his life. More importantly, though, he abuses his wife, who also has cancer. Sal suggests we go check it out for the safety of the wife. He said his mother told him to call the cops on Bob if we ever encountered him going crazy, a statement that was later proven to be false. After a bit of discussion, we walk over. Sal in the lead, Jose and I keeping a fair distance away but playing the role of backup. Keep in mind the circumstances. Sal and I are very drunk. Middle of the night, walking into a situation we know nothing about to confront an unstable man with guns, with no adults with us, and with no hospitals or police force for miles, based off of one assumption. We did that shit. Here we go. Sal also has a tendency to sometimes lose his mind and go kind of crazy when he's really fucked up. The perfect shitstorm was brewing and was about to climax right here. We approach. As we cut through other neighbors' backyards, we see Bob's wife run out from the back porch into their backyard. The scene is illuminated by warm lights spilling from the porch. Bob is still yelling from the porch, and Sal quickly shouts to the wife, asking her if she's okay and to come over by us. I don't exactly remember what was said, but Sal got really confrontational really quick with Bob. With his wife standing near Sal, Sal proceeds to not ask Bob what was going on in a calm and collected manner, and instead flames the living shit out of Bob for all the reasons mentioned earlier. It was glorious to witness. Sal goes, "Bob, nobody likes you. I'm calling the cops on you for you abusing your wife who has cancer, you absolute piece of shit. Everybody on this street hates you and is sick of your fucking bullshit. You are gonna burn in hell forever because you're a horrible person who treats his own life like shit, you worthless fucking bitch." Now, he didn't say that exactly, but that was his tone, and Sal was running his mouth for Bob for a lot longer than what I'm describing. He really drives home the point that people would be better off had Bob never existed. Now, during this beautiful confrontation of roasts and Bob getting called out for all of the worst things about him, there was a lot. Bob's responses were calm and collected. Bob pointed out that we were trespassing and were obviously under the influence of some substance, which was a true statement. He said this was none of our businesses and that Sal had no place marching on over with such an attitude and no real evidence to support his case. Again, this was technically true. But I have mad respect for what Sal did, even if it was stupid. Bob tells us that he will be contacting Sal's parents, which he did. At one point, I remember his dogs running out and gathering by Jose and I. They were really friendly, though. The situation kind of died down, and we fucked off. We sit inside the cabin talking at what the hell just happened. Even though I was drunk, I still understood perfectly well we should have not done that, or at least Sal should have been calmer about the whole thing, because Bob had a lot more on us than we did him, unfortunately. We were alone, underage drinking. We threatened Bob with no provoking from him. Things were looking bad and it only got worse. Bob did send a text to Sal's mother detailing all the events that unfolded, as well as how Sal's erratic behavior frightened him and his dogs. This turns into a phone call between Sal and his mother, who again explains that Bob is a dangerous person and that we should have minded our own business regardless of the situation with Bob's wife. Sal's dad hears about this not long after and decides to drive over to stay the night and keep the house locked down in case Bob wanted the smoke. It was so sad, dude. We had about an hour and a half left till Sal's father would arrive, and we would be sent to bed. I'm so happy that I was drunk during this because in hindsight, this situation was really, really sad. So we said fuck it and went off to the cemetery while there was still time. Sal passes me an AirPod, which I was grateful for. He played his usual rap songs with some Juice WRLD sprinkled in. We were dead quiet, hearing nothing but the chirp of distant crickets and the soft crunch of gravel beneath our feet. The sky was clear, and you could see a field of stars, a view that would be impossible in the city back home. Sal gets a call from his dad. He answers. Keep in mind, I had the AirPod in. I heard everything. And it was fucking soul-crushing, man. Sal was desperately trying to convince his father to not come up, but he was already on the highway. This back and forth lasted even after we arrived at the church. His dad kept saying that he was worried about our safety and that what Sal did was stupid and that he should have never allowed this trip to happen in the first place. I've known Sal since childhood, and therefore I know his parents too. This was the most pissed off I've ever heard Sal's dad be, ever. I should have taken the AirPod out. Sal's dad was also stressed because recently his father, so Sal's grandpa, just got into hospice. Fuck. Jose and I split off from Sal at the church. As Sal continued to negotiate to no avail, Jose and I checked all entrances to the building. They were all locked. Fucking depressing. So we headed back, still not talking much. Sal continued to roll ones on his persuasion checks. He was crying at this point, with his father still yelling and telling it as an absolute fact that he would be arriving. We get back, it's like 2 a.m. We clean up a little bit, then we wait. Nothing much was said when Sal's dad arrived. We said hello, and then he laid down on the couch. We went upstairs and laid down ourselves. I put in my own earbuds so I can enjoy some tunes. Music is really great when you're really drunk. After who knows how long, Sal calls for me. He's in his own bed about 5 feet away from mine. He tells me that if anything were to happen to him, there was nothing any of us could have done to stop it. Where the fuck is this coming from, I think? Bro is getting concerning right now. He mumbles it a little more, and I continue to respond with generically comforting things like, dude, don't say that. Until things calmed down and sleep overtook us. The morning was uninteresting. Oh, wait, what? Yeah, the morning was uninteresting. Small talk with Sal's dad. We packed up early in the morning and left. I said my thank yous and goodbyes to my friends. Then I went into my room and probably took a nap. The drive home wasn't anything special from my recollection, so that's what happened on September 1st, 2024. Okay, yeah, so that was a long-ass story, but yeah, that's what happened on September 1st, dude. That situation with Bob was fucking crazy, dude. I cannot emphasize how much Sal was going off on Bob, dude. Like, it was the thing about Sal is, he does kind of lose his mind, but when he gets mad, dude, he will think of the most creative roasts. He will fucking flame you into a pulp, even if you don't deserve it. So that was kind of crazy to see. And so yeah, Jose and I just kind of stood back and watched it all unfold, and then Bob was like, "Yeah, you guys are kind of acting insane." Which sucks, dude, because we were in the wrong, but Bob is such a dick, bro. Like, such a bad person. So, I don't know. That's about it, and I'm going to leave it here. Thanks for watching.